Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Media Coffee. I'm your host, Nariman. And in each episode, I will basically be interviewing journalists from leading media organizations around the world to answer some of the biggest questions in the PR industry, like how to attract journalist attention and pitch your story in a different market. How many times should you follow up after sending a press release? And also, should you consider holidays and public events before sending your press release? This show comes to you from Cision. We are a global provider of earned media software and services for PR agencies and comms professionals. So make sure to subscribe, send us your questions, and follow us across our social media accounts. And we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have in future episodes. My guest today is Laura Wellington, an entrepreneur, public relations expert, award-winning children's television creator, TED speaker, writer, and author. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm really excited for this conversation because we obviously had a prior conversation about this recording or this interview. And it will be really great to just, know a little bit about your background, first of all, before we start asking you all of the questions that you have about your, related to your experience.
Okay, so I started out in technology in the financial sector. My late husband and I had launched and owned two companies down on Wall Street. And then when he passed away, I ended up launching another company in the children's entertainment field. And that's really when I started to learn about PR, and not just IR, but PR. And because what we chose to do is keep all our PR in-house, thinking that as we were rolling things out around the children's television series, it gave us an indication of when we should roll out our coinciding PR. So we remained in-house with that, and we became very good at it. In fact, we're very proud. At that point, we actually won a Buzz Award, where we beat out Coke in a campaign, and that was one of our first campaigns.
That's amazing! Wow.
Yeah, we also won the Forbes Enterprise Award. We won a number of awards. It was crazy. I then went on to run a variety of companies, all of which I owned. But in 2011. I sold those and I started writing books, and as well as I launched my own blog called ThreadMB, and so that began my writing journey. So I've written for everybody and everything. I mean, everything from Huffington Post to Forbes to AARP to USA Today. I've been featured in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, Fox News, NBC, ABC, all of it. All coming from stories that we created, that we crafted, PR that we created, or things I was doing that was interesting to the media. So I became very versed in media across the board, whether as well as entertainment, which sort of go hand in hand. And that's really interesting background to have, because when you understand television, you understand the print, when you understand online news media, when you you'll understand that the synchronicities between, and then you can use it to your advantage when you're sending press out. And so recently, though, I started a new venture called ZNEEX, where I'm again using my knowledge that I have gained an experience over all this time in all different sectors, using the knowledge to craft not only the way I position the business, because positioning is extremely important, especially when it comes to trying to get media attention, but also how I craft the actual press releases. There's an art to crafting a really great press release. And it's something that you don't just do off the bat. It's something that you really need to understand where you want to position this, how you want to position this, who you want to pick this up, and who your consumer is. And then once you understand all of that, you can craft the proper headline that will grab eyeballs. So that's my background. Plus, I have 5 kids, and and so they've been along with me on this journey. I'm all very proud of them. So yeah, so that's my background.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Actually, what you just said is actually really interesting because literally crafting a press release that would be picked up by journalists is like the core of everything that we're doing in this show, just to help people understand it a little bit and then be able to craft these press releases. So let's say a company have decided their audience, the journalists that they want to target. Still, because this is we live in a very competitive environment, obviously, and there's a lot of companies, a lot of news going out everywhere. So from your own experience and opinion, what do you think is the main element that companies need to think about to make sure that a journalist will at least see their press release?
Well, can they tie it into the current news cycle is one of them. Because I think that's always a good thing if you can do that, because then, of course, they have a reason to go to your press release, So that's one thing. 2, you have to be creative when you're creating a press release or imaginative, because you have to think about, okay, as you said, all these press releases are out there. What hook can I put in that press release that will make the journalist or anyone who might have an interest read this? What's going to draw people to that press release? And, for instance, I'm going to give an example because I wrote it down. I think it's a good example for you guys. So my recent in announcing this new app that we created, right? I had to cut through the technology industry's PR, right? I had to get noticed. So I wrote a press release, and this is what I wrote. Laura Wellington's new hybrid app groups users according to vaccine preference for increased comfort. So I did a number of things there, okay? I noted that it was an app, so now tech, and also business are now interested, right? I tied it into the news cycle because I talked about the vaccine, right? So I grabbed like what is that? What's going on with this now? And then I left. You have to understand when to leave things out, because that can also be a drop. I left out what the app actually does. I put new hybrid app. What in the world is a hybrid app? Right? So that's going to draw them. It's like, what is she hybriding? All right. So that's going to draw them. I left out something that someone else might have put in. I'm like, okay, Laura Wellington's new fitness app. Let's say if it was a fitness app of some sort. Well, now it's another fitness app, right? So they may pass that by. Or Laura Wellington's new dating app. Well, now it's another dating app. They may pass that by. And some PR agents or PR outlets won't even cover certain companies. So you have to understand all this. So what I did in that headline is I thought to myself, how am I going to draw people to read this over everything else? And then I looked at it and I said, okay, let's be imaginative, let's be creative, and let's sit on the other side. What would draw me? And sometimes less is more. And that's something you have to know too. But it's just as important to know what to leave out as it is to put in.
That's actually an interesting point, because I kind of like worked in PR before. And one of the main things that I've learned is you need to put all of the information for journalists to be able to find it and understand it as well. But it's interesting what you say, leave something to ignite, I think, the journalist curiosity to find out more and to ask you more questions. And that's how you might get their attention. So, yeah.
Right. And that's the thing, because now they're going to want to read like what is going on. So they're going to read the press release. Right. So it's a way of just drawing them in.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So Laura, just going back a little bit, discussing again or talking about the background, I wanted to know more about your partnership with PR Newswire or Cision. So can you tell us just how it started and why did you partner with Cision?
So in 2015, I launched Thread MB and my blog, and it became popular very quickly. And because I was doing exactly what I was just suggested to you in my prior answer. I was drawing the journalists in, I was drawing consumers in, I was drawing everyone and everything, it seemed. Big names in all industries, people you read about every day, read this blog. And so being that it became so popular so quickly, about 2 years in, it went PR Newswire, which it was the name at the time. Someone from PR Newswire came to me and asked if they might run a feed on my blog. And, I had no problem with that because the exchange was one of, if I allowed them to do that, then they would give me the opportunity to run press releases through them, comped. And that was a very, beneficial, advantageous exchange between two companies. So I agreed to, and it's been a wonderful relationship because, of course, they got bought up and the company grew to where it is today. And we still maintain that relationship. And so as PR Newswire is Sishion is running news on my blog, people are coming to my blog. So now they might not have found it, but now they're finding it. And so now they're reading it. And vice versa, I get to, when I'm sending out press releases or whatnot, I get to promote, your company on my press release because you guys are sending them out. So it's a great exchange. It's a great company. I really enjoyed being part of this, your group, very much so. I can't speak highly enough of my relationship with you guys.
Thank you. My next question was, how did PR Newswire or this partnership has helped with the visibility? But you obviously just responded to that. So it attracted more people to read your blog. So that's great to know. I wanted to know again, how important are press releases to you and to your team? Do you think and in general to the journalism industry, do you think press releases are still important? Journalists are still looking to receive press releases?
Absolutely. I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon because the reality is it lends you credibility. When you send out a press release and let's say the news, one of the journalists or you send it out, it goes through Google, it goes through Yahoo, it goes through Ask, it goes through Bing. Now you have a tangible something to redistribute. So maybe a journalist picks it up and writes on it. Maybe they found out about something that they might not have found out about if you didn't have it. But you can also flip that in your own way and use it within your own social media. And whether you're sending out regular newsletters and now you include it, or you send out you post to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you have a tangible asset that makes it more real to journalists, right? So when you get a name like Sishion behind you, the journalist is going to they're going to take a notice. Now, whether they read the press release is another story. If it's part of what they write about or part of what they talk about, whether it be podcasters too. That depends on what you've written and if it falls into their genre. But you get instant credibility. So yes, I do think it's really, really, really important. And you need to get the news out there because that's how your companies grow.
Credibility, that's actually a key word because at the moment, a lot of companies and different industry talks about fake news and how you can combat it basically or stop it. So do you think how do you verify the information in the press releases that you receive? And do you think having a partnership with a company like Sishion or other companies as well help in verifying the accuracy of press releases?
Yeah, because you can't send out a press release without your partner, Sishion, like checking it through. You guys are thorough. So so they verify for sure. And you're held to certain criteria. So yeah, any journalist that gets something from your company, that because they know that, yeah, look, it's been vetted. So yeah, I think it definitely lends credibility. And you know, we are definitely in a period of a lot of fake news, and it's tough to tell fake from real. So when you have a corporate name behind you that's saying, "Hey, we went through this, we vetted it, we approved it, we're allowing it to go through our company," so it's almost like a secondary of set of credible eyes. Hopefully, I say secondary now, maybe not always. They might be first, but that just lends to whatever you're trying to make people aware of.
And Laura, in terms of within this market where you have big companies and like Apple, for example, Microsoft, etc., they have credibility. People know them. They look for their press releases. When it comes to smaller companies, what would you think? How can they compete with these big companies? What do you think? The key elements that they need to think about in order for them to compete with these big companies to get journalists' attention?
Well, I think one of the things that I go back on is understanding how to craft a headline that will draw them in. So, and I think that's one of the most important parts. And frankly, as I said, it's an art. Not many people really understand how to do it, so they get lost in the sauce, right? But I think you have to look at it as what would draw you. You also have to understand the dynamics behind releasing a press release. There are certain days that are better than others. Holidays, if you have a holiday in between, you probably don't want to release a press release unless somehow you crafted that headline to meet that holiday. So now they're going to be looking for stories around that holiday, and now they're going to see the connection between what you're doing. So that's a story that they would look for, because news happens all the time. So journalists are always writing news broadcast networks are always talking about news. So they do need those things to fill those gaps. But if if what you have that you're doing has nothing to do with that holiday, don't release a press release. You wait, right? And so usually Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are the best time to release news that comes from a smaller company. And it's usually around 5 to 6 in the morning. You want that press release to go out. Later in the day, it's less valuable to the journalists because they're off and running already, right? Mondays are never good because most of the bigger companies are gonna dominate on Mondays. That's the beginning of their news cycle. They can get the eyeballs on a Monday. You probably can't if you're new. Fridays, just don't do Fridays. Fridays, everybody's leaving for the weekend, and you have to understand that people are still people, right? So, what's interesting too is if you craft a great headline and you get the eyeballs on, let's say, a Tuesday, then you also have all week to work with that press release to generate further eyeballs. So that's another thing you have to think about. Whereas a Thursday, you don't. You have Friday, and then you're going into the weekend. And, they'll look for things for weekend news, which is good too. But you probably want to have that extra time. So I always try to send out press releases on Tuesdays, latest Wednesdays.
That's interesting, actually, the ability to generate probably more attention if you release it a little bit earlier. Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Yeah, it's a domino effect. It's like anything else. You want to spin it out, and then just keep moving it. It's traction. It's like energy, right? Keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving.
Yeah, and this is actually important as well because it's not the job basically doesn't stop when you release a press, when you send a press release and then it gets picked up one time. You still have an opportunity to basically capitalize on that and move on to other publications, other avenues as well. So that's something that companies or clients can think about.
Yeah, they really do have to think about it because you're generating, you're generating motion with your press release. Your press release is the catalyst, right? But then the motion is critically important because the motion carries through and more people see what's going on around your company. So you have to generate that motion. You put a press release out and you do nothing with it. Why did you even put the press release out? You have to do something with that press release afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, just going back again to something that you've said earlier, and it caught my attention, writing a press release is an art and not everyone is able to basically learn it or do it. Do you think, would you advise companies to outsource their PR to PR agencies, or do you think they should keep it in-house and find someone that, knows the company in and out and understand it?
I think it depends on the company. I think keeping your PR in-house can be very positive because PR is a department that needs to be connected to every other department. So when you're letting out a product, and then maybe you're doing an updated version of the product, well, PR and that team work hand in hand, right? So whereas sometimes when you outsource PR, is my New York accent coming out, when you outsource PR, you're just a client, okay, with certain companies. You're just one of the many. So you've got someone dedicated to you, and they do a good job, but sometimes it's better to keep it inside because everybody's got a personal reason. Their livelihoods depend upon whatever it is that you're doing. Sometimes it's not taken as seriously when you outsource. That said, that's not always the case. If you can find yourself a really, really top-notch PR agency, then that's a great find too. They're rare. I think they're rare, honestly. But I think that if you do, you can find them. I also think that there's another strategy that you just did not mention. Okay, I think an incredible opportunity for a company is to find an entity. It could be one person, it could be a small group, who understands how to craft press releases, especially headlines. All right. And that company should then hire that person whenever they need to get a press release to do just that for them. That in itself is a full business because especially in this marketplace, all right, where there's so much noise, to be able to do that well as I said, it is truly, truly an art. So a company that has the resources, they're going to pay them anyway, some way, shape, or form. All right. So why not put it in up front? Find someone that can craft press releases well. They're gold to you.
That's also an option. Yeah, absolutely. Laura, do you usually prefer receiving press releases to your email directly, or do you think having a customized feed like the one you have from Cision, so you can access press releases easily? Which option do you think is better?
I don't think it's. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy receiving press releases personally. I also enjoy the feed because I can just run through them, right? So see what applies to me and what doesn't. So I think it's both, using it for different reasons. I think sometimes you need something to come more personally to you because, maybe it can fight its way in your inbox to a dominant place where you take a look at it. And normally if I receive something like that, it's from someone that I've has done it before. I mean, I like the aggressive, like the company that will take the extra step and send me something to look at. Like, I like that because I think that that's the American spirit, right? So that's us. That's our capitalistic, personalities, and I love that because I think that's a great way to understand what's going on in the marketplace. At the same time, like I said, I'd be bogged down all day long if all I did was do that. So, so sometimes I just like to skim, and the feeds are great for that.
So in terms of following up, because that's one of the questions, I think that's one of the questions that people debate around, about a lot, whether it was journalists or PR professionals, where they wonder, should they follow up with journalists after sending the press release? Should they call, send an email, or what exactly is the best way? So from your own opinion, do you think it's better to call after sending PR? Or should should PR professionals just wait a bit or wait for the journalists to respond?
I think you should give journalists a little bit of time to read it. But journalists and anyone in media that's looking for stories, they're busy people. All right, so they may not even look at anything that anybody sent out until like 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, maybe a week later. So I would say wait a bit. No, if you're going to reach out to them, maybe take 2 days after the press release was sent and then reach out to them. Okay. Some journalists and some media people actually invite you to reach out to them with a follow-up, whether it be an email or a call or something like that. Some really love that kind of stuff because it puts it at top of their radar, where others are just, they want no part of it. So you have to be courageous in the PR world, right? You have to be able to figure out, like, if you get shut down, by a journalist or whoever, you just have to get back up again. And you can't take any of this personally, right? But then there are, like, for me, I know certain journalists personally, right? So if I send them something, I know that, like, I'm just going to ping them with an email or just pick up the phone and call them. You have to feel it out. You have to really feel it out, but just don't badger them, because badgering them, they can put you on the wrong side of that that line, and they won't read anything from you.
Absolutely. And Laura, I spoke with a couple of other journalists in Italy, for example, in Spain, and they did mention that sometimes they do use WhatsApp to communicate with PR professionals. So do you think that's something possible in the US as well? Whether it was communicating through WhatsApp or LinkedIn or other ways, is there any other ways that PR professionals and comms professionals can communicate with journalists aside from email or a phone call?
Okay, I don't generally like using WhatsApp because sometimes you just don't know. You just don't know, right? I get things sent to me through WhatsApp, and I'm always leery of them unless I know the person, right? So for me, I'd stay away from WhatsApp. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is literally one of my favorite, all right, platforms to connect with other writers, journalists, podcasters, anyone that's doing broadcast people, producers, anyone that's doing anything in media should be on LinkedIn and is on LinkedIn. So that's one of my, so yeah, that's great because LinkedIn provides different aspects of, getting through to these people. You have to connect and you have to, so it's not like, they're getting, like this, and they can read a little bit about you already. So they sort of know, like, do I want to, the second, honest, and God forbid, Elon Musk but it's crazy.
Love Twitter.
Twitter. I love Twitter. I love Twitter to get to journalists and media and whatnot. Other journalists and TV media and podcasters and online website, whatever, bloggers, all that kind. Because a lot of times people will put their contact information right in their Twitter, profile. And they will say to you, I really, DM me or here's my phone number. Send me a message. Or so I think those two platforms are incredibly beneficial to anyone who's looking to either send a press release or contact a journalist or anyone else that might be able to raise awareness around what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And just going back again to really focusing on the press release itself, what are the common mistakes that you see companies make when they send a press release to journalists or to you?
It's too long. Okay. It's overly flowery. You want it's news. It's news. So you want it basic, but then you don't want it bland. And that again is an art, right? So you're not linking a relevance to why this journalist would want to write about this or that show would like to be or a producer wants to talk about it, because you don't provide them a relevance to why the consumer or the story might be one that they would like to pick up, right? So whether it be, again, tying into the news cycle or, hey, you know what? It's snowing outside and I've got this Ouija thing that, in 2 minutes is going to make customers, clean their whatever. And the snow's going to be, something like that makes it like, oh, wow, that's really going to help my reader, or that's really going to help so you have to insert a relevance that's so obvious. All right. And then also understand what the landscape is, understand who you're trying to get to, understand what journalists might want to pick this up. Look, if you're creating like the wheel, let's say I'm creating a new wheel for Ford Motor Companies, whatever, or the auto industry, right? New wheel. And I send the press release to, lifestyle I submit it through a lifestyle category. No one's going to see it. So why did you spend your money, right? Make sure you categorize it when you submit it to the company to review and whatnot in a proper way, or let them categorize it. Make sure you do that properly. Sometimes it's confusing. That is a really confusing thing, because sometimes it's like, okay, should I send this press release to the, should I categorize it under business? Should I categorize it? In my case, when I was doing ZNEEX recently, I could categorize it in 4 or 5 different ways, right? It could be lifestyle, it could be business, it could be technology, it could be fitness, it could be all. How do you do it? Well, if you want to pay a lot of money and categorize in all those, you can do that. Or you can choose the correct one, all right, and then flip it, push it. As you're pushing it through the rest of the week, you then grab the rest, right? And you're saving money by doing it that way. So you have to understand where is it going? Like, whose eyeballs do you want to actually have see this? Who would have the best chance of actually picking this up and writing a great article about it? So I think those are some of the things that are problems. If you can insert a video, picture too, that's great. People are visual creatures.
Yeah. Laura, this makes me think, if a company comes from outside the US, right, they don't really have presence in the US, and they did all of this, they have their target audience, they understand what type of journalists they want to reach out to. Is there any, like, for example, cultural characteristics that they need to keep in mind when they're targeting a US audience? For example, let's say a company coming from the UK or somewhere in Europe, and they want to target the US. What are the characteristics and things that they need, extra things that they need to keep in mind before they send that PR to US journalists?
I think that, so I'm working with a company outside of the US right now who I'm helping to gain traction. And I think I think one of the most important things is not to be hesitant to share what you have, and be like very, very don't see Americans are known to be a louder bunch. They're known to be like Americans when they show up in a room, in a sense, in many ways, they're in the room. And that's a good thing. And, that's a good thing. That could be a bad thing, but that's a good thing, right? If you have a company from the outside the US, they tend to be less like that. But now they're moving into the US, so they have to craft their press release to those eyeballs, right? To that personality. So don't be hesitant to toot that horn, toot it, right? The worst that people could say on this side of the pond, if you're going to say, is, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, little too much. I mean, little better in a sense, a little too much in that you're really excited about what you're doing, and you're showing that, and you're tuning that horn, than not, and you don't even get looked at. So I think that's one of the biggest things I think that companies who are coming into the US have to really keep in mind. And, I basically, and also, again, I say, look at what's going on out in the world, in the US world, so to speak, and see if you can't, craft the headline to include an angle that might be interesting.
And do you think they should keep or use American English spelling wise, or is British English or Australian English, for example, are also acceptable?
I think they're acceptable. I don't see any issue. I mean, American English, I think as long as people can read it, it's fine. I mean, obviously, just make sure that there aren't words that are being used in one way in those, those places, and not in the US, or can be interpreted differently here. That's something that you would obviously have to be aware of. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's not, like I said, it's not small potatoes what you're doing here. You're getting a message out. Communication is so valuable today. Communication is always valuable, but communication is so valuable today. The way someone communicates is incredibly important when it comes to launching anything. So you have to keep that in mind. You're trying to tell a story and get people to listen. So.
Thank you so much, Laura. This is the end. This is the last question I had, or that was the last question I had, actually. Do you have any final recommendations that you would like to share with clients who are interested in reaching out to outlets in the US specifically?
Honestly, I think that in the case of that situation, I would try to find a group in the US that can at least you can take consulting services from, to understand. If you want to keep the PR in-house and you want to come into the US, right? Mm-hmm. Find a group that you can consult with on how to do it, how to execute a press release, how to reach out, someone who can mentor you in that, because you'll be whatever you're paying them, you're ultimately saving dollars in just and effort, lost effort. If you just take a chance, take a shot, and you don't. So I would say get some guidance. pay for that guidance if you need to, but get some guidance if you're coming into the US.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Laura. Again, I appreciate you and I appreciate, having you here as well. And just for our viewers, if you have any questions, please feel free to send it our way. We'll be more than happy to discuss it in later episodes. And also follow us on social media. Thank you so much.